channel. I'm not streaming.
Oh, well, then you should be able to.
Yeah, it says you can't stream into this channel when you try to click on the video.
She probably has.
Maybe I should stream.
She probably has a setting
Just
turned
because
on.
I want you to see my camera, Dan, and tell me if it looks okay.
Well, I'm streaming right now. Jeez, the hell?
I guess I should be streaming.
Yeah, you probably should be now, shouldn't you?
I should.
So, let's see. Oh, she's still funneling audio through.
The funnel.
Yeah.
I really have to stop staying up this late, but Twitch has taken over my life. And
Yeah, you're done for. You're never going back to a regular sleep schedule.
You become a
Now
Twitch
that I'm-
vampire.
now that I'm in the Discord too, it's like, holy shit.
Yeah, it gets worse.
Yeah, I can tell. It's cool though. It's fun. I've always been like a super techie person, so for me it's fun just like doing all the setup, messing around with all the channel stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just fun for that reason, honestly.
That's the one thing that's kind of kept me from getting into streaming is I am not a tech wizard by any means, and it's intimidating to me. Like, I'll talk to people all day. I'll talk till they tell me to shut up, but messing with the tech stuff, nah.
Yeah, I have fun doing that stuff. I'll just do that all day and then not even stream. Be like, well, this would be great for streaming if I actually did it. Get a setup that looks nice, and then I'll be like, oh, I spent all my time working on it.
It's like modding Skyrim. You're always modding.
Dude, seriously.
You never play?
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Say it's legalized, but all these townships and cities are fucking not renewing license or giving out licenses. They're just like trying to fucking make it so that sex workers are actually illegal rather than actually legal like the state says or the country says. So I mean that's a big thing we should take a look at is are all these countries in this study actually have it legal and accessible and are using that in practice, or are they just saying it's legal and none of the townships are following?
Wait, Wick, you mod Skyrim?
Illegalizing it based on
I mean, I don't make mods, but I definitely have a modded Skyrim with like 100, 120. I'd have to check. I haven't loaded it up in a while.
I was just asking because you said you're not technical, but I know how fucking much of a pain in the ass
I mean,
that
they
is.
got the easiest tools though nowadays.
Yeah, but is it easy though?
I just click it. I just click it and it installs, and then I click another button to sort the order, and it works. Well, not always, but
No, well, maybe I just try to do too many because my shit always crashes. I'll spend like so much time modding, and then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do a playthrough on this. Then I'll run into like a deadly bug that just destroys my entire game.
a deadly bug is in like, oh, I thought you meant like a monster. I'm like, yeah, I've installed monster mods that are too difficult too, but no, now I know it's a different bug.
Where I'm like, oh, this is gonna fuck up everything.
The bugs I usually get are if I go to a certain area, the game crashes, so I just don't go to that area.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Oh well.
C'est la vie.
Dan, how did
you
your
go and... Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask how your video shoot went.
The
Didn't
video
you
shoot
go out
went
and do audio?
okay. That's tomorrow. So
Oh, that's tomorrow,
That shoot
okay.
is tomorrow. Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna ask if you were gonna go live so I could see your fancy setup.
Oh yeah, I'm about to. I just like I get paralyzed on coming up with the title. Talking with people.
I just brilliant.
It's yeah, it's pretty good if I do say so myself.
Short, concise, to the point.
They should hire you to create names for articles with how good you are. fucking get them
Actually, I
clicks.
don't like write headlines very often, to be fair. And the headline has always been the hardest part for me. I'll write an entire story, and then when I have to write the headline, I'm just like, fuck, I don't know. I don't know how to summarize this, but it's just like a skill you have to learn. Usually the editor just like reads my story and then she's like, she just writes the headline like instantly. I'm like, all right, well, it's way easier for you. So you need to practice.
Today was my sorry, I don't mean to switch topics. Today was my mom's birthday, and I'm a little bummed out because whenever I got back, I had an invite to a closed panel. So this channel that does open panels like 6 days a week, 5 out of those 6 days they do like closed panel events, and one of those is something called Prime Royale, where it's like a battle royale of debating. So the
Oh, I'm
viewers
familiar.
vote. Yeah. So I got invited to do that today, but I missed the invite. So hopefully next week I get
Yeah,
invited
but
because
it
that'd
was
be
your
awesome.
mom's birthday, so
Yeah.
you get to celebrate with your mom.
Speaking of
Nice.
moms, I mentioned my editor earlier. My mom is my editor.
That's hot.
What is that called? What is it? Yeah, no, sir. Yeah, my family like runs the newspaper together, you could say.
Oh, that's cool.
He's
Never.
pretty good.
I don't know. I haven't read a newspaper in years and years and years.
Are you do you ever get shit in town? Like, do people? I'm assuming people know who you are. Do you ever get shit for your articles while you're out and about?
Not really. It's a small enough town that like I don't know. People aren't really rude in small towns like very much. They'll do it. I mean, they'll do it on Facebook. But other than that, no. People are like it's too small of a community. People you can't just like be rude to people, you know, because it's just like you're gonna end up having to do something with those people, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, when I published my fracking spill investigation story, I got a lot of heat for that one because the like 80% of the GDP in the county is fossil fuel based, which is just like you guys put your eggs in one basket, you know, but they'll still get mad at anyone who even points out the fact that there's like toxic shit spilling. I'm just saying it's
Right.
happening. I'm not saying anything else. I'm just saying it's happening. And they're like, what motivated this article? It's all political. Raw. Like, I don't even remember the comments. If I went and read them though, it would just be like, you know, you've seen people on Facebook, I'm sure.
I have at times I've been those people.
You have been those people?
I've been those people.
The furious keyboard warrior
Oh yeah.
that hits that caps lock
Absolutely.
button and unleashes a fury.
Look. I'm not proud of it, but I've done it. Okay.
You know what? That's okay. I think we all have our times where we go a little off our off the meds, so to speak.
Dan, I went live.
Okay.
Just FYI.
Give me a second and I'll head over there.
The country can say it's legal, but give power to local municipalities to make it illegal at a local level, which in turn just literally makes it illegal again. You see what I'm saying? So like, do these countries have it legal in actual practice, or just it's allowed?
Wick, were you in the chat earlier?
Thank you for the follows, by the way. Thanks, guys.
If it's actually legal in practice, and they're using
Hello?
Hello.
Oh my god, that was such
Hi.
an awkward experience. Holy crap, dude. How did I do that? How
What
did I make
happened?
it so weird?
What happened?
Well, he was trying to raid me and then he heard me saying, "Oh no, I don't want to be raided." And because I heard somebody was
What's
trying
up,
to
Divine Panda? How are you?
somebody was going to raid me or whatever, and I only was like that because I felt bad because I made things awkward in his Discord. So but then he was like, "Oh no, I don't want to raid her. She doesn't want to be raided." And then people are messaging me like, "Oh, you messed it up. And I'm like, "Oh no, like he's probably offended now that I don't want him to raid me." But it's not like that, you know. So I went
Yeah,
over there to talk.
you made it
Yeah.
double awkward.
Oh yeah, it was horrible. I feel so
Panda,
ashamed of
I'm
myself. I've
glad you're
never
feeling
been.
fantastic.
I don't know.
That's good.
Like you said, you messed
I'm
up. You
horribly
messed up.
awkward.
It's all wrong.
This is a
Can't
kind
blame
It
that.
is.
this is a kind of disagreement we need between conservatives and liberals. The awkward type, the normal type, not the screaming type. You know, there's a good
Yeah.
case study on how to deal with it. You came in, dropped some awkward bombs. They tried to show you wolves. I don't know why, but they did, and here we are. Now you're friends.
We are friends. I mean,
Panda,
we always were friends. Like one of my
bartending
best
for
friends
yourself,
in the
huh?
area is a Republican,
Jeez.
conservative. And
Maybe I'll
you know,
make
I went to
myself a
college
drink
with her.
too.
Yeah, it's just how it is in DC. Like we go out to the bar and drink, even though we're
Let's
like
see.
rooting for
So
different
typically what I
sides.
do is
So
I do political
I
panels.
think that's how it should be.
I'm
You should,
new
like,
to
it used to be
Twitch,
normal to have
so I'm
friends
still
that had
trying
different
to like
political
find
beliefs than
my
you do.
kind of find
yeah.
my place and
It's
all
not so
that.
much today.
Right now I'm talking with a couple of friends,
You're right.
Stardust and
Well, I
Levelhead, whose
think that
stream
you
we were
should
just looking at. So
excommunicate all of
this one
those
here is
people forever.
Stardust.
Forget their
This one here
names.
is Levelhead.
Burn anything
Stardust
that
is
they've
also
ever
a political
touched.
commentator.
See,
And
this is
Levelhead
Twitch
is.
leftism. This is
Sorry,
Twitch
hold on. Let
leftism coming
me
out in you, right?
go ahead
true.
and just mute this real quick. What's up? What's up, Carter Brep? Carter Wap? How are you? Yeah, so right now we're just kind of going through stream setup. Sometimes I game, talk about political issues, that sort of thing. But over the last week, I've just been messing around with the layout, doing tech stuff, that sort of thing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. So I quit my job about 2 months ago to pursue like video work and content production and that sort of thing. And Twitch is kind of new to me. Normally I do video work for like businesses and that sort of thing commercially, but I want to start creating my own brand. About 2 years ago, I went viral, and it wasn't the only time I'd been viral in the past, but oh, Super Cali, thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are so kind, always so kind. Thank you for the warm welcome. And thank you for checking out the politics, politics area of Twitch. It's as you guys probably know, it's a growing community here. So if you guys aren't familiar with Prime KSO, that would be this stream here. I was invited for the first time to his Primetime Royale, which is like a closed debate event. I wasn't able to do that tonight though, but I've been talking with him, and so I'll be on in the future, so that's good. I do have a growing audience. I think normally I average around like 5 viewers, which isn't a lot, but hey, a week ago it was 0, so. How do you not even have a profile pic yet if you want to create a brand? Yeah. It's all good. We've just been going like one step at a time. Sometimes you just get wrapped up in stuff like all too quickly. Like I said, I have a business outside of here, so my commercial filmmaking business gets a lot of my attention. So this is kind of secondhand to me. Then normally once I get on Twitch, I try to start doing stuff like that, getting the layout done, doing banner photos. I've been photoshopping my banner photo. I probably should just throw up a pic for my profile pic. Just haven't done it. So let's see. I'm a Vosh fan, so I'm very aware of who Prime is. Yeah, Vosh is okay. I appreciate Vosh's commentary. If you're a hardcore leftist, you'll do just fine on Twitch. I wouldn't consider myself a hardcore leftist. I tend to get called the leftist by people who are on the right, and, a Republican by people who are on the left, although as I have deeper conversations with people and clarify points and have joined the community, that happens less and less. I would kind of classify myself as a SOCDEM. I believe in a welfare state, but at the same time, I'm a huge fan of capitalism. Super. Yeah, thank you. So for myself, I'm actually, Super Cali, I classify myself as non-binary. I own some women clothes. Yeah. Sorry, it's still that's not something that I normally talk about. Personally, I'm not super comfortable with it, but yeah, that's why I went ahead and threw the LGBTQ up there. I was gonna guess sock dam just by you saying left, but not too left. Yeah. And right now in Prime's panel, they're talking about, let's see, I'm Cardi Wop. Are you joking? Am I joking about what? Cardi B Wop. Coming in to troll about being gay. Well, I didn't say I was gay, but if you want to classify me as gay, you go for it. Divine Panda, yeah, I don't stress too hard over pronouns. I grew up Republican, so it's a little bit harder for me to, I'm just not as prone to getting emotional about things as some people on the left. I respect other people's pronouns, try to use the correct ones, but yeah, pretty much any pronoun works for me.
What conversation are we gonna have? Like, what are we gonna
Yeah,
talk
what is the
about?
topic?
Well, I guess we could talk about like let me think for a second.
We were having an interesting conversation about red pills and things like that earlier.
About red pills?
Red pills,
like-
the red pill
like-
community. The
Oh yeah, there's a
Manscape, things
whole
like
bunch
that.
of manosphere.
Yes.
Yeah, the
Why did I call it
manosphere.
manscape? Manscaping something else. Never mind.
No, not manscaping. That's a specific activity. Manosphere is like the incel community, you know?
Well, like I was actually talking with about incels and things, and they're actually a very, very small part. At least this is what I've been informed. I may
Yeah,
have been
so
misinformed.
Cardi B Wop,
But they're a
I
very, very small
understand
part of the
kind of where
overall
you're
red pill
going. I know that
community.
you're trolling a little bit, but yeah, I would say to
And
kind of
Okay.
talk along
like,
your
you know what I
lines,
mean?
I think
Like,
made up pronouns
when
are a little
we talk about red
cringe.
pills and if we talk about incels,
But that's
they're
just
almost two
because
different
it's a
things.
creation. The people who make up
Like it's like
more pronouns
how to say this?
are essentially making more
all
categories while
incels are red pills,
simultaneously
but not all red
arguing
pills
for
are
like the
incels. Does that make
abolishment
sense?
of categories. So I find the premise of it just to be a little
So
cringe
I
coming
think
from the
that
people who do that.
there are different ways to talk. Like it's
Well, I
almost
guess
as
you
if
better get off Twitch then.
it's why I don't like labels too, because if you talk about like if you tell someone, hey, I'm a conservative, they're always going to assume like that you believe every single thing every conservative who has ever lived believes, which obviously is kind of silly.
Oh, hey, Divine Panda,
And so
you
when you
seem
go
like
and you talk to a red
seem
pill
like you've been
and say, oh, you must
pretty
be an incel, and you treat
squared
them just
away
like
so
that,
far.
you're gonna miss
Can
the
you let
point.
me
You're gonna
know
not get the same
what?
kind of.
So I have a
you know,
an
does that make
auto
sense at all? Is that
like
Yeah, it makes
an
sense.
auto mod tool
That,
that
and
came with
I get that.
Streamlabs, so I'm
I
not
don't think that
100%
all
sure
people
like
in the
what words it's
manosphere are
getting rid of.
incels.
I
Just
just turned it
incels
on
are the most
yesterday.
notorious ones,
So
but
the fact
there
that
are
it
also
like, did
obviously
anything to what you said,
you know, like
F word.
MGTOW and
That's
all
no
those other
fun. All right,
things, and
let me turn that off.
and
'Cause
you know, I was
I
looking
had it
at
on
YouTube.
because I had
There's a
some
lot of them on
anti-Semites
YouTube. A lot of people in the
using
manosphere on
some
YouTube,
racial slurs
and I was like thinking, like maybe
yesterday,
I can
so I went
argue
ahead
with
and
some of
tossed
these
it on,
people,
but
like it just makes me think about I don't want to come off as, you know, a female in my, you know, well, obviously I come off as I am a female. So,
I think I'll just
but I don't want
turn it off
to
altogether.
come off as somebody who is explaining things from their perspective when things are much easier for me in their perception. And it will come off kind of like I'm almost like
There we
I'm
go.
mansplaining to them, right?
I understand that
Yeah.
fear, but
All right,
but I mean,
will you type
isn't
out fuck
giving into
again
that fear
and
kind of doing them a
see if it comes
disservice?
through?
Because
I don't know if I have to
they need
restart
to
the
hear
stream
other
now, but
points of view, and they need to be able to have a conversation with someone who isn't stuck in their mindset. You know what I mean?
But see, the thing is with those types
Sick.
of people, they tend to get very, very irate, very angry
All right, time for me
when
to participate in this
a
conversation a
female
little bit.
tries to tell them like, no, it's not that bad, right?
You know what?
Okay.
Let's
yeah,
get something
so
going in the background
I'm
here.
not sure. I honestly do not know many people that are in that kind of like mindset. I know a lot of people who are red pill sympathetic, but that's a different thing.
yeah.
But yeah,
A
I
lot
would.
of people get very, very yeah. Sorry,
I-
go
yeah,
ahead.
no, it's okay. I just would. I like to encourage people to have conversations, even if those conversations may not be comfortable for either party. And yes, there is a risk of it devolving into some kind of screaming match, if you will. But I think there could be some good that could come out of it, even if it's just helping us listeners and you as a streamer to understand the position more, because I think we don't understand each other in a lot of ways. Like,
Yeah.
and that's a problem, and I've seen it in so many streams
Yeah.
in so many places where what they'll do is they'll put on a stream and they'll react to the most extreme position a
Yeah.
side will have, and a lot of people feel like they've been done a disservice because they're like, well, I don't agree with that. I identify as this and I don't agree with that at all. Why are you putting words in my mouth? Why are you saying that
It's the
this guy
same
is
thing.
me?
Yeah, exactly. Like when people talk about like, oh, you have such a problem with Trump and you have a problem with Gates, but you don't say anything about Cuomo. I'm like, dude, I've been saying stuff about Cuomo. Cuomo should resign. Like, I'm against anybody who takes advantage of people and who violates people's boundaries. It's not okay. It doesn't matter who it is. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Definitely.
Yeah, that's it. That's a perfect example. Is that
Yeah.
we're all arguing at the 5% of a side or a ideology or a viewpoint, when 95% of the people who hold that viewpoint are fairly reasonable and can be reasoned with, and we could just have a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Wait, Wick, who are you on?
What's up,
on
step bro?
Twitch?
I'm not. I'm HJ Fudge on the comment.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
all right.
So
So I do like to argue with people.
No, I get that.
Yeah, that's fun for me. I just do that for fun.
Well, I think
if you
Um,
want to, we
I
can
saw
go down about
you
the
in her stream
police not being a
yesterday, if
racial
I
issue
remember
right now. I will go at it with you if you want.
Maybe in a little bit. I'm just coming down after all of that
Stardust.
action from
It's all good
excuse
in
me
the hood.
from earlier, but I would love to have that conversation with you for sure.
Wait, Wick, what was your what were you asserting? What are you trying to have?
Okay,
Yeah,
my view is it's the one that gets me into trouble most when I talk on Twitch. I do consider myself a liberal. I consider myself a leftist, but I don't think policing is at its heart a racial issue, and I think that treating it as a racial issue it harms the ability to put in the necessary reforms to fix policing in the United States.
Cool.
So,
Well-
I mean, go ahead, Dan.
Oh no, I wasn't gonna go anywhere with the conversation since Stardust wasn't wanting to. I was just curious, that way I could think about it.
Keep it in mind for
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
if you
just-
want to have a
can I
talk
ask a
about that
clarifying
tomorrow, Wick,
question?
Sure.
I would love to do that. Or
Don't you have the
even maybe-
hippy dippy thing though?
I do, but I'll probably be online before that.
No, Divine Panda.
Or no, I will
definitely
be online
matters.
after that.
I think
Actually,
as,
tomorrow's the
I
day
think
that
when
I
a
was going
chat's
to
going
plan on
crazy,
setting
you know,
up
it's
that
tough
like
to pay attention
recurring
to what
open
everybody
kind of
wants
call.
to say, but
So,
the whole point
Cool.
is like build community.
yeah.
Well, that
right?
could
So
be the
it's cool
first
to,
topic at
it's kinda
hand,
cool
policing
to
in America.
get to hear your
I would love that. Yeah,
feelings.
yeah.
And then
I
you could have
understand why
people with
people
different
criticize
views.
capitalism. I don't
Maybe
think
someone
capitalism
way more
is
conservative
perfect,
than
but
I
don't think
am,
any
because
economic
I'm not a
system is
conservative,
perfect.
and sometimes I find
I
myself
think that
I find myself defending
capitalism,
them a lot though, because I
as it
don't like
currently
bullies, and I
exists, can
feel like
actually be
especially on
fixed pretty
Twitch they
easily
get
with
bullied a
policy.
lot.
I think so
It's just
too.
a matter of, like, getting that policy implemented.
It's
So,
weird because I tend to take a
let's
very
see.
I take
And-
the
oh my
most
God, Step
unpopular
Bro.
stance
Look, man,
usually
or-
for all
or woman,
sides
or whatever you
in,
are.
in a lot of those
People are gonna have, like,
panel
different opinions
debates.
about different things, right? I find
don't
it
know, partly
incredibly
because maybe
cringe
I'm a
whenever
little bit
people on the left
of a-
like really
I don't
want
know,
to
maybe
criticize.
I just like to argue,
people
but,
for
like,
not wanting to date.
I also
trans
think that
women. However, I find it equally as cringe that people
I think
who don't
people
want to
see
date trans
things
women
as too like black
like,
and white a lot of the
don't
time,
really
and things
know
are
how
very
to say
gray.
why. So
And like for example, the
and-
whole like defund the police thing
and look,
is
the thing is like
horrible
not all trans
optics.
women have dicks, right?
Said
and
over
most
and
of the
over
time
again.
after transition is completely
There are plenty of
finished,
people in America
you
who have like,
actually can't
decent
tell. So after that
experiences with police.
point, there just doesn't
and
really
it's just
seem
not
to
a
be any good
marketable
argument. So.
slogan. but that's just
Well,
my
I'm not
opinion.
calling
But
you.
I mean,
I'm not
that's
calling you
another
transphobic.
unpopular one I have.
So if other people are,
One that gets everybody
sorry.
super upset is I'm like pro euthanasia.
Just know that they don't represent
you know?
everybody on their like political side of the aisle.
If somebody
Well,
wants to.
Oftentimes
anyone
the
chair
loudest
gaming, I'm just a
people are a
dude.
minority,
Just white guy.
and
with beard.
oftentimes we
Oh.
hear the
I
worst
think that
ideas
the whole
from the side that's
concept of
opposite of us.
liberal
all
and
of us-
conservative, like those are the
I think all
most
of us on both
probably
sides of the
commonly
aisle
used
actually
ones
are a lot
if we're labeling
closer
people's
together
opinions
than what we're led
in
to
the
believe. So
you know, your average American, or even more broadly than that. And I know this because I live in a rural area, and like there's not a lot of people on Twitch. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There's not a lot of people on Twitter. There's not really people involved in that. So a lot of people say conservative or liberal, but there's like all these other classifications that you get into online. But on the
yeah, and that's the
conservative thing, I think
too.
it's
Like
interesting.
I get just as
I
creeped
don't know. We should
out
probably
by
just figure out
people
better
on the
ways to
left
talk
who
about
are
it if we
almost
can.
almost
because, like,
insist that cis people should be
I'd
having
rather
conservative
sex
talk
with
applies
topic
a
by
lot.
trans
topic.
people.
You know.
Like that is almost just as
Like
cringe
topic
as
by
somebody saying
topic.
that they
I know what
don't
you're
wanna
saying
have
though.
sex
Like
with,
yeah,
like, a
there's
trans
people
person.
Yeah,
just
well,
listen to
I was just,
fully
what I was going to get at
transitioned.
was
It's
just that
just
like
the
there are
obsession
people out
with
here
who
who
other
would be
people have
called
sex with.
conservatives.
It's just
um,
weird to me.
and
I
they are
get what they're
conservative
trying
about,
to do.
about a
They're
lot of
trying to be
things.
like they're trying to proactively
But to me, like
fight,
being conservative
like
would imply that you would
transphobia,
want to
but
like conserve things,
this
right?
proactive like
Naturally.
addressing of these
But
issues
then
in that
people
kind of
out
way,
here
like
want to conserve
proactively
their way
trying
of
to
life, and so
shame
therefore they
people
don't want to
socially
conserve
just
the
doesn't really
land
seem to
because
work.
they
In
want
fact,
to
it seems
like
to push
they
people
want
into
to
like
they want to see
into
more oil
the
and gas
farther,
production
like, it
on the
pushes
land
people
because
further
that's
away
like their
from you, if that
economic
makes
way of
sense.
life. But they don't. But that like goes against actually conserving the land from a public land standpoint. So it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of contradictory, but in the same at the same time, it's not. It's really going to be like super specific depending on what part of the country you're talking about, and I don't know. It's just, it can be really confusing, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be. That's why I don't really like to go by labels. The only labels I go by are like, again, just feminist, you know. And because part of the reason why I go by that label also is so people
Yeah, Divine Panda, I
people can
completely
see
agree.
somebody
I
like
completely
who
agree.
who identifies
like
as a feminist who isn't
normally what men
like
are
the
saying
typical,
whenever
like,
they
Tumblr
say, "Hey, I don't
feminist,
want to
you
have
know?
sex with a trans woman," is they're thinking that the
Understood.
trans person still has a
Yeah.
penis. So basically,
So,
what they're
but
saying is
in
not,
general, I like to
"Hey,
go
I don't
topic
want to
by
have sex with a
topic when it
trans
comes
person." What they're
to
saying is, "Hey, I don't want to
politics
fuck,
and,
somebody that has a dick," which to me is
yeah,
like,
there's
that's
such a spectrum, but
understandable. I get
Twitch is
that,
very
We all
like
have preferences.
toxic.
Some people don't
Leftist
want to
Twitcher
fuck women who have
Twitch
small
can be
tits,
really
you know?
toxic because they
Everybody has sexual preferences.
if you're not the most far left, then you're automatically like a conservative, you know.
Oh, I'm
wild.
very aware.
Yeah.
But
oh my
I do have
god, yeah.
I do have a question for you though on this. Is have you always been a feminist, or did you come to that viewpoint later in life, or how?
I think I've always been one, and my mom was one, and yeah, my mom was one, and I thought I was one for a long time, but turns out I wasn't as much of one as I could have been. So for a long time I thought, yeah, I'm a feminist, but I think I've really grown. Like in my 20s, I kind of realized like what it really means, I guess, to me. So, yeah.
Because I've changed my mind so many times on this issue, on not on feminism, but on I guess my superpower is that I can change my mind. It seems to be a superpower because no one else seems to be able to. But no, it really, what I want to do is like most of my goals. I think most people's goals are the same. They want a better world. They want a better life for themselves. They want a better life for others. It's just how we get to those goals. They have such widely different opinions on not only what we should be moving towards, but also where the problems lie. I don't know.
Okay.
I find it's good though to get to kind of figure out where people are coming from and why they think what they think more than anything, you know?
Yeah. I mean, also, like, you have to get that I come from probably a typically more conservative upbringing, strict upbringing, and although my family is progressive, like, you know, we're still very traditional in a lot of ways. So, had a very traditional upbringing, and I had a very strict household, and I was socialized, I feel like, even more than the average like Western woman to be even like more submissive, right? So I think and be even more quiet. So I think just like that also helped me kind of like understand like why I kind of identify as a feminist, I guess. I don't have a problem with my upbringing, you know, but like there is definitely the way that we're taught, we're socialized is a drawback in a lot of ways. So
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Would
we're
you
all
say that
victims
your
of our.
worldview. Would you say that your worldview is like entirely different from the way it used to be, in terms of how you were raised, at least on that thing?
Not really. I think I wouldn't change a single thing about the way that I was raised. I think it was great in a lot of aspects. I just wish that I wasn't so socialized to be. The one aspect that I wish I was different is that I wish I wasn't socialized to like hate every part of myself so much, you know, like socialized to like, and this is common for a lot of girls, like, you know, because so much of your worth is based off of your looks and based off of your image or whatever, and your relationship to others. You just like end up hurting yourself a whole lot as you're growing up, you know, because you're either you don't fit into the norm or you don't fit into you know, a specific group for all reasons that are out of your control, right? So yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I asked is just because I was also raised super conservative in a lot of ways, especially when it came to like, you know, sex and stuff like that. Just because my parents were pastors, it was like sexual purity was extremely important, and I have like diametrically opposing views to that now. But I just think that when you are socialized in a certain way, growing up, like you have no choice
Yeah,
but to
but
accept
Panda,
that, and
watching people like
you just
Steven
kind of
Crowder is
accept
so
it like fully
much
down to
fun.
your core.
It's so much
to
fun.
even to the point
You
where
just
it, like,
you can't get
affects
mad
how
by
your
what they're
brain works
saying.
and
You just
stuff.
have to ask yourself,
So
like,
then
wow,
to
does
actually
this
have to
person like
rebuild
honestly believe
your
this?
worldview,
And then
from
understand that
if
if
it
they do
changes,
honestly
I
believe
think
that,
can allow you
that their
to.
arguments are
I think it's.
so
I just think that
bad.
it's like an
Like,
advantage in sort of
their arguments are
assessing
so
political
bad. You
situations,
can't help but have
getting at
fun
what you were
just like
saying
tearing
earlier,
it
like
down.
there's
Like,
still a lot of
I don't
things
know
that
why, but as
are
humans,
just like wired into me now, like shame and
breaking
guilt,
things is
you know,
just
associated
fun,
with
you know,
like
and
sexual
Yeah.
feelings
even
and stuff. If you
rhetorically
get that
destroying
wired
things can
into
be
you
so
as a
much
young
fun.
kid,
Like,
you pretty
it's
much
fun
can't
to
get rid
build a
of it, no
Lego
matter
tower, but
how
it's
woke you
even
get.
Yeah.
like more exciting to
Thank you
blow
for the
it
follow,
up.
by the way,
You know?
Cycloptic Sander. Yeah, I don't. So like, I do have to like, you know, my family was traditional in a lot of ways, but like progressive in others, right? Like, but it's just because, you know, from an ethnic background, like, you know, things are just stricter and more traditional in a lot of ways. But my mom, even though she like socialized me to do all these things that are very feminine, you know, she still is somebody who's always said like, or at least recently she said to me like, I think women should be able to walk around with no clothes.
You gotta
be,
embrace the
harassed.
cringe. You have
Unfortunately,
to
that's not the
embrace the
reality,
cringe.
right? Like that's just not how. That's not how it. It's not how the world is, right? And I think it's like that's kind of why we end up just re-socializing our children, our offspring, into certain ways, right? Because yeah, I could have been socialized to like not care so much about certain things, but it would have been probably a harder life, I feel like, you know, like even more like sticking out like a, you know, a sore thumb or whatever. So
The Japanese have a saying: "The nail that sticks out
Like-
gets pounded down."
where you're
And, yeah,
empathetic
family life,
of their
I think we're all
embarrassment,
victims
so
of our
you're like
socialization
feeling
and how we
embarrassed
are
on
all
their behalf.
brought up. I only became a feminist when I
That's
was
so
out of the
funny.
house because every time my family would talk about such things, it was always to mock, to degrade, or to
You know, the
misrepresent.
other thing too, though, is you
So
don't have to
when
be
I
like a
was
debate, bro.
14,
You know,
15,
you can come
16,
in and just
I
have
thought I knew
conversations.
what feminism
I
was
like
about.
yelling, I like
But when
screaming,
I
but at
was
the same
actually able
time,
to
especially in
actually
person, I have some
meet
really
different
lucrative
people outside
conversations
of
with people.
my house and
Like I
socialize
said, I
with a
think
different
people have
group of
way
people
more
outside
in
of the
common,
military kind of
even
family that I
on like
was
the far ways
raised in.
of ideologies and what they
It
think
just kind
they
of opened
do.
my eyes.
Like,
And
for instance,
I
I think if
wonder,
there's one
like,
thing everybody has in
if
common,
we're
I think
kind
we all
of
want
drawing
like a
back
better
from
future
that,
for
like we
ourselves, and we all want a
refuse
better
to let
future for the people that
our
we care
children
about.
or our
And
friends socialize with people
where
with
all
a
of our
different opinion
disagreements
now.
come in, it's just like we can't
Thanks
agree
for the
on
follow,
how
Iron
to get
Tonian.
there, but we all have the
Sorry,
same
continue.
goal. If we
No, it's okay.
recognize that,
I mean,
then we
I'm
can
just kind of
start to
rambling at
like
this point, but that's
we can
kind
start
of
to work
my worry,
towards, you know,
is that we're
policy,
segregating ourselves into ideological
policy
bubbles,
and that sort of thing
and we
that'll like start
refuse
to
to
actually get
even
us
hear out the other
where we
side
want to
because
go.
we are
You know?
all so certain that we are right, that we will never even entertain that the other side might have some good to give us. And no
Yeah.
worldview is 100% correct, I feel.
I mean, I agree with you. You know, I think truth is probably, you know, a little bit of both, right? But I think part of the reason why it's so polarized is because we see so much more of the extreme, right? Like I see so much extreme online. I see like hardcore like Stalin stands, right? Online, and then I see like hardcore like Nazis online. It's wild. It's like and obviously online isn't real life, but like people those just the very fact that you see those so often now is that like you see in person, you see those certain ideas are no longer, there's no more stigma around it, you know. There's not as much stigma around these very
some of the
extreme
thoughts that have come up around that?
talking points. So I think it's part of that, and I think also you're probably right. Like we're just getting used to like creating our own echo chambers because we can do that on social media. So why not just do it in person too? But I don't know. I don't know what the solution is, to be honest with you. It's complicated.
Yeah, if I knew the solution, I'd tell you. Like sometimes I wonder if we should just stop social media, because I think that's I think the weapon. Because there's always been, you know, tribalism, you know.
Yeah.
But it's like with Twitter and with Twitch and with YouTube, we've each tribe has gotten nukes now. You know what I mean? It's changed the game. We can measure in a real sense the effectiveness of an argument, and it drives towards extremism. And so if you want to make money, which almost everyone does, that's where you go with the most extreme view possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that
Yeah.
go ahead, Stardust, sorry.
Nope, go ahead. It's fine. I didn't have anything
Oh, I was
substantive.
just like, I don't know. I think that the social media and the internet and the way that it allows us to engage with each other, it's just amplifying things that were already there. So, for example, it amplifies tribalism, but it also amplifies other aspects. So I think it's just as positive as it is negative. You know, for example, we have like we're all talking to each other right now. Would any of us have talked to each other 50 years ago? Like maybe
I
all
would
of us
be dead.
talking
I
to
would
all of
not
each
be
other
Probably
online?
not. We're all in different parts of the country, right? I mean,
Yeah, and like if you're streaming, you're probably getting people, you know, like I've gotten people in the first 30 followers who are like from Sweden and stuff, and it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting to
yeah.
consider what that can do to our social interactions, and what barriers it can break down, even if at the same time it is reinforcing existing ones.
Yeah, and isn't it crazy how
and
we can recognize
think
a
it does take
problem, but
people
like
who
the
kind of
avenues
have
that we
the
try to take to
attitude that I
fix that
think was being
problem could be
discussed earlier a
vastly
little bit,
different. Always
of
blows
like
my mind.
trying to make sure people aren't getting bullied on Twitch is just like
Yeah.
one example, you know, just
Yeah.
like you have to meet people where they're at, and that's super important. A lot of people aren't willing to do that, because it can be pretty hard, you know, especially if we're
Yeah.
talking about things that really affect people's lives.
Yeah.
But
I mean, you
think-
know, it used to be. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go for it.
Well, it used to be like, No, never mind. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, we also have to recognize that social media hasn't really existed that long either. I mean, I'm one of few people who remembers, you know, I shouldn't say it like this, but in terms of like who interacts online, like it's almost hard to find people who remember MySpace. Like
Back in my
everybody. Yeah, so social media
Yeah.
is still so young to many of us. We're still trying to develop, you know, etiquette for it. We're still learning how to interact online in healthy ways. And yeah, like right now, extremism it's extremely marketable. You can make a lot of money grifting. You can make a lot of money holding like really crazy ideas. But at the same time, as time goes on, we've seen like a lot of these ideas also, like Milo, right? So Milo for a bit of time made a good bit of money, but then eventually we're like, you know what, maybe we should limit this kind of speech, right? And then for somebody like that, kind of lost everything. So there are, you know, we're working on disincentives for crazy ideas, and hopefully, I hate to see people's like free speech limited, but my hope is that we'll see some of the same stuff come like towards the left as well for some of the really crazy folks who have like literally endorsed genocide. I won't name people specifically, but you know, some of those people exist too, and I
Yeah.
feel like they should be purged also, you know, if we're purging the other side too.
I don't know if purge is the word I'd use. I'm
Nah.
pretty anti-censorship. I think that these views should be allowed a space, but because if we don't allow them a space, the view isn't going to go away. The view isn't going to disappear. It's just going to go
Yeah.
underground. We're not going to be able to follow it, and we're all going to be shocked when something bad happens. Whereas if they are on a space and if they have a platform, we can point and laugh at them. We can show and dissect why they are harmful and why they are wrong. And I think that using censorship to solve this problem is not going to solve this problem. It's never solved the problem. In my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah.
From Go ahead, Stardust.
I don't think that censorship is a solution unless it's like people who are threatening harm, and people who are engaging in like stalking or whatever, right? I think I agree with Wick over here, who was saying like, you know, we need to be able to see who needs help. Essentially, is like it is pretty much how I look at it. Is like I would rather see people who need help, people who are like, you know, kind of falling down a hole, so we can at least like prevent them from falling down the
Yeah,
hole
and what's
before it
crazy
happens,
is like all of the
too
data
much, you know?
shows us that immigration
And
actually boosts
you know,
the economy.
maybe there's a few salvageable people too, you know, who have fallen down these, you know, horrible holes of genocide denial. So
I think
Yeah, and I
part of the
should-
problem too is not just like kicking people off of a platform, but like trying to destroy their entire life, you know? Like you have to extend some kind of olive branch, but I know the common argument against this is like the paradox of tolerance, which is that, you know, there is something appealing to human beings. I don't know if this is like a human nature argument, which I would generally try to avoid, but there's something appealing about certain ideologies like fascism or just authoritarianism in general, because they offer easy solutions. They can appeal to people's like, you know, sort of, I don't know, more primal instincts in a lot of ways. They can be very intoxicating. And so I don't know, it's just worth at least considering how people can get into spaces and dominate those spaces. And if the Nazis are winning the ideological battle, which I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying, like, hypothetically speaking, if they are, then obviously, like, would it have been worth censoring them? This is a hypothetical scenario, but
I understand. My counter argument to that would be that I think the process is a very important thing. Because while I would say that a more leftist ideology holds the levers of power and who gets censored now, today, 10 years from now, that might not be the case. And if we set a precedent that it's okay because we feel that a view is inappropriate or we feel a view is harmful, to be able to shut that point of view down, there's going to come a time when the levers are going to be held by hands that think our views are illegitimate, our views are harmful, and our views
Yeah.
need to be shut down. So if we don't set that precedent now, that even if we see those views as harmful, it's not okay. Like the Civil Liberties Union back in the 70s, they protected the KKK's right to protest in the streets because they knew that the right to protest was much more important than keeping people's sensibilities safe, because they weren't Nazis, they didn't like the KKK, but the process had to be protected.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, individual liberty, has always been like a very important thing. And if you get rid of it for one group, then, inevitably it'll probably
Yeah, I mean,
happen to you eventually.
I generally agree, although I think it's not necessarily the case that one thing logically follows the other. I mean, that's like, it's a slippery slope argument. I understand it. But, for example, we have we already have free speech restrictions in certain ways. We have TOS on Twitch, for example. And you could argue that we shouldn't have TOS on Twitch. I don't know if you would make that argument.
I don't think I would. No, I think so. I think Twitch is a private company, so I don't know. Like, I think like it depends, right? If it's like part of a company's policies, then a private company has the right to do what they want, I guess, with their stuff. But I just don't like the idea of getting rid of people from places, I guess, that when the rules are not there necessarily, right? It's supposed to be like a generally like open place. I don't know. It's so weird. It's a hard line to walk, I guess.
Right.
Because I think Twitter should have the right to ban who they want if somebody's like inciting violence, right? They should be able to do that, And I think a private company running a website should probably be able to kick people out who don't align with their company values. But
right. But
I mean,
logically, that pretty much extends to so much of society. If you're taking that stance, I would say, and I think generally when we're having this conversation, we're doing it about these platforms.
Yeah,
in my experience. But even like so many spaces are private, like private businesses. If it's just a space that you own, even if it's like a religious institution, like a church, or I mean, I don't like. Yeah, you should be able to protest in the street, but that's not really what we're talking about. And that's the whole thing, is like, if you get sent out onto the street and you have to wave swastikas around, you're gonna like realize, probably, hopefully, that I don't know, that you're irrelevant. You don't have a voice, and like your ideology is just, it's not, people don't jive with it. I realize it's more complicated than that, but there is something to be said for not, I think, in my opinion, allowing people who are potentially skilled at rhetoric coming in and sort of, I don't know.
That makes sense. Yeah.
There's
There's this one guy on. Yeah, I get what you're saying, and I agree with that. It's such a hard line to walk, right? Because I think that people should be able to, companies and private spaces should be able to enforce rules that they want. But I do think that being able to spot people who are like in trouble,
people who are fearful,
psychologically, and
like,
help them, maybe that would,
more
that
prone to
I
becoming
think that's
conservative
better
anyway,
than
right?
not
So
seeing them and letting them fall down those holes.
Not just
But
correlation there,
I
but
don't
a
know. I don't
causation
know what the
between,
solution
like,
is,
being
and I
prone to
don't know
fear and
where I
having
would
very
draw the
conservative
line. Really,
ideas.
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah, well,
It's so
That's-
complicated.
we're not like really qualified to
Yeah.
help people who are like if you're in a psychological situation where you're fully down the conspiracy theory hole of the whatever Western civilization is ending, and they're trying to replace white people with the blah 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 blah, like it goes so fucking far down the rabbit hole. If you're in that situation, yeah, you probably need like psychological help, but like that you need to go and do that. So maybe we should in some way figure out ways to like get those people help, but I feel like that's a different conversation than like I guess deplatforming. But are we even talking about deplatforming?
Well,
I have no idea what we're
I-
talking
I
about,
think-
to be honest with you.
I think we're talking about censorship in general. At least that's what I've been talking about. But can I just
So what
chime in
qualifies
with
as
a
censorship? Yeah, go ahead.
just real quick with a pushback on the I've never been okay with corporations just being able to do what they want personally. Like, I don't know why we're okay with that now as left-leaning people. Like, when did that happen? When did that switch come about? I've always been against things like
Well-
Citizens United. I've always been against things like, I've been for unions, which limit corporation power so they can't just fire people willy-nilly. Like, I've always
agree
been
with
for
that.
that. You know what I mean? Like, so what makes social media different than that? What makes social media a different space for corporations than we would say workers? Because this is their livelihood. People are getting their livelihood from.
Right. So any company, right? If you start quoting like Hitler, any company, and they find out that you do that, like on the street, any company will probably fire you. You know.
I understand that.
So if you are quoting Hitler on Twitter, and Twitter like is like, "Yo, don't fucking do that," and you get kicked off, you know, it sounds like the same. It's like removing an unruly customer too. You know,
Yeah,
I yeah, it's people. There needs to be. So I think there should
It's
be a
always
point where
way
like somebody is
easier
like
to point blame on
just
somebody
starting to
else
teeter on
than
the
to,
edge.
like,
We should be able to see
accept
them on
blame
social
for
media.
yourself,
That's my
right?
opinion, because
Or even
then
if
we can be
there's-
like, if somebody
even
close
if
to
we
them
don't
knows them, they can be
understand
like,
why something's
hey,
happening,
I
then
wonder
that's
if
the
this
honest
person's
answer,
family is
right?
around
Like,
because
hey,
they're
I
not
don't know
posting
why
very nicely
the
on social
economy's
media.
collapsing,
But like when
right?
somebody's already gone down the rabbit hole and is
The
like,
honest
they're coming
position
to
would be to
replace
say,
us,
hey,
like
I don't know why the
white people are
economy's
going to be
collapsing, but it
exterminated,
is still
then
easier
it's
to just point to some
you know, then
group or,
then
or
probably
something,
like
right, and blame that
I don't know
thing.
what to say, but like it,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
I
so
do. I think that we agree that a line has to be drawn somewhere. I think
Yeah.
everyone can say that the line has to be drawn there. But people
Yeah.
aren't getting deplatformed. People aren't losing their jobs. I don't care if a Twitter personality loses their platform as much, but people are being fired from their job for not racist things, but for things just very anodyne comments that are microaggressions. I have a sister-in-law who was recently put on administrative leave because she made a microaggression, and yeah, what she said wasn't very nice,
What
but
did
it
she
wasn't.
say?
Okay, so she was she was talking about going to Cozumel, Mexico, and how she's always loved Mexico. But the thing that the person who reported her here is she said, "I don't like the Mexicans in Cozumel," and she went on because she felt like it was a tourist trap. Yeah, the language she used, not ideal, not wise, but the fact that she is no longer eligible for promotion in her job, things like that, that's just that seems too much for a slip of the tongue. You know what I mean? Like, is that really doing actual harm to someone?
yeah,
I mean,
no, Rick, I agree with you because I've defended people like plenty of times, especially on Twitch, where somebody in the chat is like commenting something and they're joking about something, and then they get like somebody fucking starts tearing them a new asshole on the stream, like taking the worst, like least charitable view of what they were saying, and just like ascribing positions to them, and I disagree with that. But I think just because there can be situations where you know, there's like overreach, you could say, or whatever, that still doesn't change the fact that yeah, there are scenarios where, like, especially if you have a business, and this is actually an argument for personal liberty, because let's say you own a business or you're part of a business and you cater to a specific demographic, and they, you know, they especially help to sustain your business, and you get somebody coming in who is they're doing whatever behavior it is that they're doing that's bigoted or whatever, and start driving away your clientele and actually like harming your business. Like, you should have the opportunity to exercise your freedom to be like, no, this is my business and you need to get the fuck out because you're a fucking Nazi. Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
I
Discord I'm in
do,
right now.
I do get that.
Say
I
hello
do
to
get
our
that
community and
argument.
stuff. and
And
ask
I
if you
don't
can, like, hop in.
disagree with that
I don't know
argument.
if
What I
she's gonna
disagree
want
with is
a
I
bunch of
don't
people
feel
hopping
that
in right
that's
now,
the
but maybe she
case
will. I
in
don't know.
most of these situations. I don't feel
Yeah.
like someone's going around throwing the N-word everywhere. You know what I mean? It's people are just the worst cases are when people get fired for simply not speaking up or agreeing with the current orthodoxy. There's a court case at Georgetown University very recently. They were on a live stream. Someone made a comment, whether it was racist or not, you could argue either way. They got fired, and that's okay, fair. But you know who else got administrative leave? The
All right,
person
maybe at
who
some
happened to
point
be in the
when you
stream
haven't been
and
downing
was just nodding
vodka.
along. They didn't say anything. They were just nodding along.
Yeah,
these
I
are-
don't agree with that. Like, obviously, I think that things need to be like blatantly said, or blatantly done, right? I think if somebody is just nodding or somebody says something super innocent with no intention, right? Like, I don't know. I've seen people try to cancel others over like really small baby stuff, and I agree with you there, right? Because like when it comes down to it, if you've ever experienced any type of oppression, you don't care about the small baby microaggression shit,
Just
like
work on
maybe at
it,
some
okay?
point when your life gets better, maybe you'll care
a
about it, but
drink
like in the grand scheme
before a
of things,
conversation, and then a
just
drink
like,
while you're having
you
it,
probably
you
shouldn't
know?
say that. It sounds
Kind
kind
of
of
ease
weird,
yourself,
but
into it.
um
You can do it.
Yeah. and
yeah,
those
I don't
kinds
know
of,
how
like,
the solution is
I get nervous
to
too.
that,
Sometimes
kinds of
my
direct
voice gets
cancellations or, like,
really high
canceling
pitched.
people
for instance,
over
whenever
something
I'm,
that's
like,
so
not
small.
confident.
That's the exact
It's
kind
so
of
weird.
thing that will ostracize people further, and then maybe like then lead them, towards that, like,
Yeah, it's a
that
tool of
being more extreme.
radicalization.
And I
Yeah.
think we're all in agreement on that, not canceling people, unduly or whatever. I guess I'm just not sure what your position is, Wick, just because, when we were talking about TOS earlier and
Oh
stuff.
man, I'm not. You know what? I'm not sure what my position is half the time.
Well, that's
I
fine. I think
usually
that's
usually
fine,
take a
yeah.
very nuanced view of things, or I try to. Is case by case it. You know what I mean? But
I think
like I said, for me, the process is important, and I would rather. Well, there's a principle in the justice system we have that I like, that we would rather 100 guilty men go free than one innocent person go to jail. And I feel that the same with canceling people or censorship. I would rather you let 100 harmful things stay in than cancel one person who is just
Yeah, because
slipping
when
away.
it comes down to it, right, when something is blatantly harassment, then then you can easily like get rid of that person, right? Or you would hope so, right? If somebody does a microaggression to me,
Panda.
like a couple of times, it's
Thank
like
you.
whatever. But if somebody's
Sincerely,
like
thank you
calling
so
me the
much.
c
Really
word and
appreciate
calling me
you.
a bitch
I
and
hope
like
to
and
see you in
telling me
chat
like I
often.
deserve to like
I've enjoyed our little
I don't know,
conversation.
die or whatever, then like it's pretty easy to get rid of those people. I feel, or it should be. I don't know.
Yeah, so I just think it's important that we delineate the difference. Like, what is censorship? What is canceling? When is it an overreaction? Because I don't think that like kicking someone off a platform for violating predetermined rules is the same thing as censorship, which I don't agree with censorship broadly speaking, but I think that becomes definitely like a catch-all term that is being used in these conversations, that it's like, well, what do you even mean by censorship? Like, if you get kicked off of a Twitter, like, you can still go protest in the street, so you're not being censored, you're just not allowed to say your shitty opinions on that private space. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and it's really hard to have hard and fast rules for this kind of stuff, because it's a lot of it is it when you see it, like the recent Teen Vogue editor person. It's hard for me to see any legitimate person, and again, I'm just speaking for myself here. It's very hard to make the case that something someone said at 17 years old. Can we just everything while we were teenagers, can we just erase all that? Like, can we just all agree that nothing we say as teenagers should be held against us?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, no.
I agree with
absolutely.
that 100%. There's this girl, like one of my sister's classmates, who's going around on Twitter and trying to cancel people for shit they said when they were 14. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Are you serious right now? You
That's
know,
something we're
like,
gonna have to deal with too. Like, we're gonna have to
yeah,
have that conversation more. Unfortunately, as tedious as it is, like, no, there's no fucking way. Like, we all have shitty opinions when we're young. If you can't, like, even like, if you're not even an adult, you're not even considered an adult, so you don't even
yeah,
get considerations and rights of like a full adult, but yet you have to be responsible for your speech like later and answer for it. I just don't. That just doesn't make any sense. I don't understand how anyone could argue for that. Like
Well,
canceling people for their opinions when they're 14.
they're arguing it because it works and it gets them what they want. In a very pragmatic way, it is something that has caught on, and in many cases, especially in left-leaning organizations and places where the people who are in charge are left adjacent, I guess you would say, it has a lot of power and it can do a lot of things that it's a power play in a lot of cases, straight up.
Yeah, like just trying to get people to get fired or whatever by being like, I'm gonna go dig through their fucking whatever shit they put online, however long. I just like, but then that's really for somebody to turn around and then be like, I don't know. It's like I interviewed this guy recently. He's a barber in the town, and like he's like the only barber that we've had for a long time. And I interviewed him. I did this whole feature story on him, and then like I had somebody call me the day after, being like, "Hey, just so you know, this person is they're like a shitty person and they're a felon and all this stuff." And like I just was like, what? So they left me this crazy message, and I called him back just to be like, okay, well, you know, if you have anything you want to throw my way, like I'll look into it, just
yeah,
to check my bases. But like they never responded. But even if they would have, like, what are you gonna send me as rap sheet? I don't give a shit. Like, what are you even trying to do? I think it was just somebody with a personal grudge, like who was trying to like, you know, I don't know, they're just trying to like harm this other person, but not for any like, not because this person's like a danger to the community or something, just because it was convenient for them to do that.
yeah.
But everything
Cool.
they said was wrong. I looked into it.
Agreement on
You know what?
this, at
Frick
least.
you. You're wrong about everything. No, I'm just kidding.
I guess I just I don't know. I tend to have a little more empathy for people than I think is normal nowadays, and because I understand I'm not the same person I was 10 years ago. I'm not the same person I was 20 years ago, and in 10 years, I don't think I'll be the same person then. So we gotta be a little more forgiving. And yes, I understand that certain types of speech and certain types of behavior can cause real harm. I don't think that, for example, using a harmful word or two equates to that level of you should lose your job and livelihood and never be allowed into society again.
Yeah, no, that's obviously well, and then like a lot. It is strange when it comes from the left, whatever, so to speak, left, the cancellation thing, because leftists are supposed to believe in rehabilitative or restorative justice. Like
Yeah.
you're supposed to be able to say that. I mean, if you're gonna argue that there shouldn't be a death penalty, because like, you know, anyone, even people we would now execute based on their crimes, like they could be rehabilitated in theory, but somebody who had a shitty take on Twitter, never talk to them, ostracize them. Like what?
I mean, it
totally
happens. It's what we do. It's part of the, you get on Twitch and you say, like, actually, I think conservatives have a good point about X, Y, and Z. And they're like, oh, so you are okay with cops killing black people. I'm like, what? What is this? And then they ban me and time me out or whatever. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm just trying to have a conversation here.
So, in just being charitable to that side too, though, like I think it's hard for people. They get emotional if they've had a lot of
I
like
get
negative
that.
interactions, or if they've been discriminated against, or if like or like for me it's hard because I live around a lot of conservatives and like reactionary people and people who will just the right is like very much cancel culture-y too. I've published stories where they just like they go off, they're just so triggered without even actually engaging with anything that I've reported on. And it's just like, so I guess the reason, like sometimes I actually have that tendency too to hear somebody or see somebody in a chat or whatever saying something and just to like assume that they're operating from like some shitty assumptions or assume other things about what they believe. It's really hard to not do it. I feel like we all do that as much as we want to say
I'm not innocent here. I am
yeah,
not innocent of
it's
this.
something you always have to fight, I think, just like within yourself. Be like, no, wait, I gotta remember that these are all just people. But chats don't help because it's text based, and like have you ever just like written something to a streamer and they just like they totally misunderstand like
Well,
everything you're trying to say just because it's text based, like there's no inflection or anything?
yeah, so I haven't had it with a streamer, but I've seen friends interact online through text and lose their shit at each other, just because they misinterpret things. But I think this like immediate reaction though to like these like small things, still are harmful in the long run because I get it. People have personal experiences, right? But why does that justify them more than the person who is had a personal experience where police has like stepped in and helped them, so like it doesn't and I don't think it justifies it one way or the other, right? I think people
No, I
need to
agree.
like be
I
able
totally
to
agree.
have a level head about it. And I think we can say like, yeah, it can be easy to misinterpret things when it's on text for sure. And we never know. I think what people might argue is that people don't know when somebody's just doing a typical question that's not really meant to be a real question, a question that's meant to like kind of troll or annoy people,
Yeah, I
versus
was gonna
somebody
say
genuinely asking that
too.
question. People
yeah.
genuinely asking that question, right? But I think it's safer to assume that somebody's genuinely asking a question and then answer it, and then if they keep going at it, then maybe they are just trolling. I don't know, but
Yeah, I get why it's exhausting. I get
Yeah.
why it's exhausting having to answer the same question 20 times. I understand. I've worked in the military. I've worked
Literally,
in, customer support.
literally
It
the
gets old and we can get tired. But you have to give other people kind of the benefit of the doubt. Well, I guess you don't have to, but it's good to. It's generally a good thing. And
That's
I think
where you start from.
yeah, I think also
Oh my god,
to go on to
I
the
haven't
personal
been.
experience thing,
That's I
think
stopped
the
going on
left,
Twitter
we
like
in the
6
left,
months ago
we
for that
fetishize
reason. I
this
was
personal
oh
experience
man.
stuff.
I
Yeah,
kind of like
personal
redone my
experience is
Twitter,
important,
started following
to
more
be able
left-wing
to
people
point
because
out
of like
issues
my change in
and
political
people's
ideology a
personal
couple years
experiences should
back.
be believed
And
and
then
respected.
oh man,
But
it's
just
so
because my house
depressing to
burns
see
down
the
doesn't mean I
stuff
know how to
that like
fix a
my
fire, or
allies,
stop a
quote
fire.
unquote, are saying
Personal
online.
experience gives you
Oh.
no special power on how to solve a problem.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
but we assume it does, and we assume that we should listen to these people with their personal experiences, and we should, but they're not experts. I'm not an expert. None of us are experts except for the experts.
Yeah, I think the only point I was trying to make is like very similar to what Stardust was saying, which is just it's really just about empathy. Like
people get very
remembering to be
upset.
empathetic towards other people. Like it doesn't mean that you have to say like, oh, they're totally right because
Yeah.
they had an experience. It's just like understanding why they feel that way so that you don't then go like, oh, they're just a triggered lefty. Oh, they're just a fucking stupid, like whatever. They're just a stupid conservative. Like they're coming from their own perspective, and like you have to empathize with people in order to avoid like, I don't know. But yeah, you don't have to validate what they believe or whatever. You just have to be like, I
So-
understand why.
one thing that really bothers me about the ultra far left, right? As somebody who's left leaning, is that their personal experience is always they put so much more value on a personal experience that goes along with like what their status quo, I guess, opinion is on a certain subject. And then when somebody else has like a personal experience that is relevant and probably equal in severity, I think a lot of people like just immediately disregard it. It's like I was having that argument with people about like ACAB not being a good slogan, and defund the police not being a good slogan. People are like, well, people pay with their bodies. I'm like, yeah, people pay with their bodies, like with police brutality, but people also have been paying with their bodies in like a domestic situation where police have like stepped in. How many kids like have had police step in when they're in like really shitty situations, like to like disqualify all these experiences, which are going to affect the like effectiveness of that slogan is like mind-bogglingly like stupid, like why, like you have to think about like people's
That's right,
individual
Jimmy.
relationships
Evil.
with certain
Evil
things, right?
dolphins.
And nobody's experience is more valid than somebody else's. And I'm not saying that anybody here is saying that, it's just something I see a lot with super far left people, and it's very irritating for me.
No, we're just venting. It's all good.
Yeah.
We're just complaining about what we see. And
Yeah.
and you're right. But that's human nature too, in a way. We have confirmation bias. We tend to go towards those news sources that tell us what we already believe. We tend to listen to the views that agree with us. It just feels good. I think one of the other dangers I see on the ultra far left is we compartmentalize too much. We consume our identities too much. We aren't just people. We're, oh well, I'm a white hetero cis male who grew up poor, but I had both members of my family, both my parents, and we segregate each other in these little boxes. And I think that separates us more than it helps to unite us. And that's again, I guess it points back onto my policing isn't a racial thing. Everyone's being brutalized by police of every race, culture, ethnicity. We're all getting it. We're all taking it.
Look, I think everybody's getting it, but I think everybody's getting brutalized. But I do think that there are certain communities.
Is it chronic depression,
we all know
Panda?
that certain
Is it really Twitter?
communities get policed more,
Is it
right?
really just
and
Twitter?
because certain communities have larger amounts of certain ethnicities in those communities, then yes, it turns into a racial thing because people of that community, of that ethnic group, probably feel like, why the fuck is this happening to me?
So I guess the question then would be, assuming that's true, and I don't doubt it, I think it's a little, there is data out there that says that the racial bias does not play a role in police killing as we think. There are studies, and we'll do that on the panel tomorrow, I guess. I'll go through the data. Yeah. But when it comes down to it, yes, okay. So let's say that minorities and minority groups are being killed more by the police, but the solutions to that are non-racial. So why not get everyone on board? Why not keep race out of it and really drive home that it's everyone that's being victimized? Does that make sense?
It is, but it doesn't. But that kind of goes back into this whole like when again lefties go with the whole class reductionism thing. Like, why would you even like bring race into it when it's all about class, right? Which is like such a reductionist view when race really does have a very big impact on certain people's quality of life, like life or whatever, like if somebody is being brutalized at a much higher percentage than somebody else, then yeah, we do have to kind of take that into account, So
No, yeah, I
And
get that.
There are
I
things that are self-perpetuating too. So, like for example,
Yeah.
if certain communities receive harsher sentences or worse outcomes within the criminal justice system, that can actually perpetuate further criminality. Like
yeah,
the conservative meme of like fatherless homes, but it's true that
Yeah.
like those communities can be devastated, even if let's say that they were all arrested and stopped at the exact same rate, which I'm fairly confident that there's plenty of data to back up the idea that these minority communities are disproportionately targeted, policed, and also even in specific situations are treated worse or whatever. But even just that aside, let's just, if we were to assume that on the policing side it was all totally even, which again I don't think it is, but if it was, within the criminal justice system we know that there are disproportionate outcomes for certain types of things. So again, that can actually cause that can actually like have a lasting damaging impact on a community that then actually leads to further poverty, further criminality rates, and then therefore further policing. So like it's a broad systemic thing. It's not just like policing, which
No,
I do.
I do want to clarify that when it comes to the sentencing, yes, there is 100% data that supports that there is definitely a racial bias in that. In that system, yes, 100%. Though I will note that it's getting better. From 2001 to 2019, the ratio of Black and Hispanic men that are incarcerated has dropped 50%. It's gotten better over these last 20 years, which is great.
So what I would say is there was a study done on pulling people over, right? And at nighttime, I think it was, I forgot the exact details of it, right?
But yeah.
Yeah, the people at nighttime, police pulled over white people and Black people at the same rate, and then during the daytime, they pulled Black people over much more. So there is data, right, to point, like we can look at like one study or two studies that say, that there isn't like I guess with killing or whatever, right? But if we talk just purely on like brutality, right?
With brutality, then yes, I agree with you. There is no argument there.
Okay, but I believe there is. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look at my chart again. I have like a whole bunch of crap, but
Sure.
I don't know. I would say though, when we talk about police reform, we're not always talking about like people getting killed. We're just talking about lives being ruined, right? Sentencing ruins lives, right? Sentencing ruins lives. It ruins the lives of the families of those people who get harsher sentences. Brutality ruins lives because people have horrible relationships with their police forces. The over-policing really fucks up a specific ethnic group when it comes to like poverty, the over-policing of poorer areas, right? And the over-policing of certain groups. So when people talk about improving things, improving relations with the police, improving the police system, I think it's important that we do bring in race into it, because if we don't bring race into it, we're ignoring the fact that there are literal families being destroyed by this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who dies, right? It matters whose lives are ruined by it.
But again, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's fine. It doesn't matter who dies. It matters whose lives are ruined, as a result of that, right? And
follow.
disproportionately,
Really
the lives that
wonderful.
are ruined by over-policing are people of color.
Yeah, but is the solution to that racially based? Like if you solve the, for example, let's take
If it's a racial issue. Wouldn't it?
It
have
is
to
a
be?
racial issue because what we've established, you have agreed with me that brutality is racially it's more likely to happen to people of color. You've agreed with
Sure.
me on that. You've agreed with me on the over policing of people within colored communities. I think I don't know.
Well, poverty, communities of poverty, which colored people are more likely to be part of.
Yes.
So,
And you've also agreed with me on the you've agreed with us on the idea that people are of color are more likely to get harsher sentences, right? So these
Yes.
these are three very big issues that are all racially motivated. So we need to actually provide a solution that does have some basis in race for it.
well, let me ask you this. If we do that, if we solve that issue from a racial perspective, would not the end result simply be that people of color, because I guess someone didn't like the term I used, which isn't a racial term, it's just I'm trying to describe a certain set of people. I'm sorry if I misspoke and offended you.
What do you mean by
Oh,
the
well.
engine? Are you talking about the way
and-
the game
or-
feels?
To get back to my point, white people and people of color, wouldn't they just be brutalized at the same rate, which I guess is cool and all, but I mean,
Well, you would see the thing is when you make policies, right, for
Yes,
certain
yes.
communities, those policies tend to affect people across the board, right? When you improve the police and the way that they treat people, right, and often I think you're viewing some of these solutions as primarily racially motivated when like these ideas of like improving relationships between police units and their the communities that surround them is not necessarily a racially based thing. That is just that you building a stronger relationship with these communities that you
Exactly,
happen to
yes.
over police, right?
Yes.
But to take out race of that picture, the issue still disproportionately affects one race, and to take race out of that picture is really like simplifying it and not addressing a problem.
I think that it does address the problem, however. I think that if we solve the issue of their tendency to use violence by police when it is unnecessary, it not only helps the white community, but it helps minority communities, and it helps the minority community even more. Even though
What's it,
that,
DJ Coolmaster?
when it
How are you,
comes
my
down
friend?
to it, the police's tendency to use violence as a first resort is not at its heart a racial issue. This is what they do. It is true that minorities are more likely to have an encounter with the police, but when they do encounter the police, and yes, there is some bias there is some rate of, there is some data that does show that people of color and Hispanic descent do get overly targeted. But again, I think that again, that's a symptom rather than the problem. Does that make sense? Is that?
Yeah, but I think, you see, the thing is there are two things happening here, right? You're taking non-racial solutions and ascribing race to them, and then you're taking problems that are racially based and saying that those solutions that are already not completely racially based are somehow correlated, right? That they're both racially, they're not, you know?
But if you solve the problems that the police are using that harm minority communities more than they harm white communities, the problem itself isn't a racial problem. It is a problem with training. It is a problem with the laws we have in place. For example, I think it's called qualified immunity. That's a terrible law. It's a terrible law indeed. And if we remove
What's for
that,
breakfast
it
this
would
morning,
improve
DJ?
the lives of minority communities more than it would improve the lives of white communities. But it is not a racial.
Okay, but like you said,
But
it's a
nobody's claiming that those solutions are specifically racial solutions. Yeah, like when people come up with solutions to police brutality, nobody is claiming that those solutions are completely racial in nature, right? All we are claiming is that certain communities specifically people of color and people in low income communities are disproportionately affected by police brutality,
Going
by
to
by
restart the
over
stream
incarceration,
because of some connection
and by
issues.
just being over policed.